Who's ready, Bills Mafia? It's the Bills Squad, sponsored by Gametime. Everything Buffalo Bills, every week. Breaking down the big hits and game-changing plays the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills. So gear up and squad up. The Bills Squad show starts now.
Come back, Bills Mafia. The Bills might not have 100% attendance because of all the injuries, something we'll get to, but we are 100%, back at 100%. Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Jerry Ostrowski, the Bills Squad show, back with you to get to training camp. Joe is in Rochester. I was there this morning. Joe's in Rochester, going to give us some of his takeaways from training camp. We'll dig into the depth chart, the position battles, what's going well, what's not going well, all that, the stuff you need to know about how practices are going. Today, also the first padded practice at St. John Fisher. So we'll dig into Keon Coleman's shine from the weekend and plenty more as well. Today's episode brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Gentlemen, good afternoon. I was getting the whispers of the fully padded practice throughout the day. The lead director of the Hard Knocks show, Pat Harris, he stopped on WGR, and I said to him, full pads today? I feel like he would know, right? He's the guy filming all the stuff for Hard Knocks. And he said, oh, yeah, full pads. And then Joe Brady said it, and you could just tell, like, the buzz around camp today for a fully padded practice was palpable.
No, we might be on a delay, so I'll make sure we don't talk over each other. But no, today to me anyway, while it officially is not the first day of training camp, today is the official first day of training camp. They put pads on, and when you talk about a Buffalo Bills team where their strengths are, this was something that was probably wanted for quite some time by that offensive side of the ball, because we've got a bunch of bullies up front on that offensive line, and I'm sure Joe will talk about it. He was there. You've been at practice. I'm sure they've asserted themselves very, very well today in the practice setting, because you get annoyed. I mean, first day of pads is great because you've got 3 to 4 days built up of just being irritated by all these defensive dudes running all over the place, flying off the ball, no repercussions. And this isn't just something that's happening in Rochester. You see it across the league. I've seen 9 million posts about Abdul Carter being the greatest player of all time. And it's like, yeah, they're just out there playing in workout gear. Anybody can do that. An offensive lineman can't do anything physical. So today everybody got put in check. So all the guys that were a little bit excited, a little over exuberant, those cats got put in check today. So, hey, welcome to the real NFL now that we got pads on.
Yeah, you could tell the intensity was a little bit different out there today, and there was some good thudding going on out there. They did a lot of run stuff, inside run, working the zone stuff, a lot of quick games. So it was a good opportunity for the big guys to be able to actually exchange some physicality as opposed to, stay off the ground, everybody easy. It ramped up today, and I thought you saw some guys emerge from that.
How often did it used to be fully padded versus how it is today? Was it fully padded all practices 10, 15, 20 years ago?
My first season when I was drafted by the Chiefs, we went 2 practices a day, full pads, 3 hours of practice. When I went to Atlanta, it was the same thing. When I got to Buffalo, and all of a sudden, in Buffalo, we never put pants on. It was shells all the time with Marv. But we did have pads on both practices usually, unless we got closer to game times, he'd pull some stuff off. But yeah, I mean, you had 2 practices and you usually had the least shoulder pads on, maybe pads in the pants and things like that, but completely different now than it was in the past.
Thinking about the battles here, good test for these defensive linemen, right? Especially these young guys like TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, iron sharpens iron, Joe, right? That's the thing. Like, you're going up against NFL caliber offensive linemen if you're a rookie, TJ Sanders. Not just linemen, but like really good ones. I mean, the Bills across their offensive line are pretty great left to right. So for these defensive tackles, like, what have you seen out of the group so far in your couple practices there? And especially today, as it went fully padded.
Yeah, the guy I got a lot of exposure to today was Deion Walker, the 4th-round pick, and I was excited to see his one-on-ones and, of course, more of the team stuff. He only had one one-on-one rep. They did some pass rush stuff, and He tried to hit a hump move, and the execution of the hump move was really good. You could tell that he needed a little bit more power to be able to get that guy displaced to create that angle to get through. But then on the inside run stuff, I thought he did a good job of pursuit, right? There was a lot of stretch runs, lateral type stuff, and I thought his movement skills were really, really solid to be able to kind of string things out and leverage, and I thought that was a strength of what he was able to do. You didn't get to see a ton of gap stuff today, which I think would have been a bigger challenge for Dion. So I thought the things that you would love about Dion, they were on display. I wish we would have seen a little bit more in the one-on-ones, and I wish there was a little bit more of a gap run emphasis today to see some of the bigger concerns. But his movement was really, really strong. On the flip side of that, the guy that I thought just didn't meet the moment today was Dwayne Carter, and that started with the one-on-one pass rush. Osiris Torrance just put him on his back. I mean, literally just dumped him over when Carter was trying to bowl, was able to lift and just literally flat back him. And then you just kind of get the sense that his anchor is just not there against the run. And so that was the guy that today I was hoping to see a little bit more from in this type of a setting as the pads came on.
It's funny, real quick, you talk about Deion Walker and in pre-draft evaluations and watching him then after the Bills drafted him. Playing that kind of lateral zone, playing that wide zone is kind of what he does well.
Yeah.
He's so tall, he's so long, he's a handsy guy. So playing down the line and not letting offensive linemen get into him is something he does well. I'm like you, Joe. We'll see what happens when it's the quick downhill stuff in the cap scheme game and those types of things taken on doubles. That hump move's interesting. Everybody thinks you have to have the power. Obviously, Reggie had the power, but the setup is what makes the hump move so good. So if he wants to get better at it, he's going to have to get a little bit of twitch, get a little bit upfield, then he can hit it more. So he'll learn real quick. It's a little different. Even then, playing 4 years in the league, that it just means more. The SEC, the NFL's different than the SEC. That these guys are really, really good, and you better have 2 and 3 to go along with 1. So he'll get there.
Which one of you wants the task of explaining and describing maybe what is a hump move when you say that from a defensive tackle?
Well, I guess I should probably do it because I'm the one that got thrown on the ground by Reggie White in Green Bay, so I'd probably be the best to do that.
Yeah, that's never happened to me, Jerry. I've never lost a rep to Reggie White, to be honest.
So a hump move is set up. So what a hump move is and why Reggie was so good at it is Reggie was a huge individual, but he was very, very quick upfield. And you'll see a defensive lineman, he'll attack the outside shoulder of an offensive lineman. He'll go. And then the offensive lineman gets it in his head. I've got to get out of my stance. I've got to get into my drive catch phase to shut that outside move off. And the timing of it is once you're getting that outside step after like your second or third step and you're moving and you got your momentum going outside, the defensive lineman puts the brakes on, plants that inside foot and takes that inside arm and actually humps back over the top. So he'll club you to where your momentum continually goes outside, then you got an inside path of quarterback. So it's a great move if you can do it, but the setup is you got to set it up with speed and all of that before, you're not just going to go out there and go to Osiris Torrance and say, I'm going to club you inside. Not going to happen because he'll probably club you back outside. So you've got to have some setups with it at that level.
Never lost a rep to Reggie White. Put it on a T-shirt. That's from Jean Paul there.
Neither is Jeremy.
That's true.
I don't know what's going on here.
That's true. Joe, going back to the scouting report on Dwayne Carter, like we talked quite a bit about Deion Walker, coming into this training camp and the draft profile. Anyone that's followed you knew your concerns about him. Going back to Carter, I mean, this is a guy that for the Bills came on early and then kind of lost his way, wasn't on the field. Did you think he'd be a project? Do you see things there that you like a lot but still need work? I mean, he's a young player, of course, but the Bills are counting on young players up front.
Yeah, my favorite thing about Dwayne Carter coming out of Duke was the gap shooting ability, the penetration skills, the pass rush. And that's really not the world that he's living in with the Bills. He's playing a lot in the A-gaps as a one tech, a nose tackle, and he's having to be a lot less of that, right? There's always an up the field nature, regardless of wherever you're playing on this Bills defensive line. But for Dwayne Carter, just hunkering down, leveraging his hips, anchoring at the point of attack's not really his best attribute. He's got a bit of a dense build, but there's not a lot of mass to the density of his frame. And so I think he struggles to anchor, and I'd like to see him be able to to shoot gaps a little bit more, but I think the depth chart ahead of him is a little bit complicated. Now he is getting the number 2 reps, and that's helpful, but I think that he's a guy that would be better served in more of the Ed Oliver role, and I'm nervous that opportunity is not going to be there because he's right now first in for Daquan Jones, and his pair is with Larry Ogunjobi, who's playing the 3. And so that'll obviously evolve a little bit, but I'd like to see him more in the penetration style role, but I think that's the complicating factor, is that's kind of where a lot of the guys on this defensive tackle depth chart are best.
Question real quick, Joe, to you on that. Do you think that he was a guy that they felt they could put more size and weight on and convert him to that, and then have that quickie, twitchy type of 2 technique, and use those strengths, and he would develop that way? Or is he just a victim of depth now and necessity, and the fact that they didn't go get really a true blue? Well, they did, but he's a project, and Deion Walker, they're trying to get him up to speed before they can move him back out. Is he a victim of that? Or did the Bills see him and say, hey, we could really beef this guy up, put some weight on him, and turn him into just a disruptor at that nose position? Kind of how do you see that with him?
Well, I think Brandon Beane kind of told us before the draft that they were going to let the draft play out and then decide if Dwayne Carter's going to major in the 1 tech or the 3 tech. And after the draft played out, he's going to major in the 1 tech. And so I think this is kind of where he's going to be this year. And I don't find it to be the best use of his skill set, but that's kind of what the Bills signed up for with the defensive tackles that they brought in. I mean, they all kind of do the same thing, the best, different skill sets within that. But, I don't think this team really has a 1 tech on the roster outside of Daquan Jones.
This defensive line overall, we're seeing lots of changes, right? I mean, we could talk defensive tackles. We could talk defensive ends too. Joey Bosa, early returns there. I mean, first day fully padded again. Like, how different is it for defensive ends on a day like today where, previously you're just speed rushing all day, whatever. Now you get into some power if you're Bosa, or try to do that in a camp practice like today?
Well, I think with Bosa, one of the interesting things about the run piece specifically is, and he said this in his media availability, I think last week, he's been with the outside linebackers with the Chargers, and now he's with the full defensive line. He said, it's been a long time since I've been with the full defensive line. And so, playing the run from those wider alignments, a lot of times in a 2-point, is going to be a little different than, tighter to the alignment in the 3-point a lot more frequently. But with Bosa, there's definitely a calculated plan. He's not getting a ton of team reps. I might be able to count on one hand on 2 practice how many times he played in 11 on 11. So they're being calculated there. And so I think it's hard to really gauge where he's at because I think there's obviously a long-term, when I say long-term within the context of this year, plan that they're working on, which I think is the right perspective, but it's hard to have much to say about how Bosa's looked in practice because they're being pretty cautious with him.
Talking about the Bills at training camp today, Joe was there today, and fully padded practice for the Buffalo Bills. Mentioned a few different players that have done really well. O'Cyrus Torrence against Dwayne Carter. And you also said you want to call out Matt Milano here in this one.
Yeah, I thought the 2 best players on the field today were O'Cyrus Torrence on offense, whether it was the one-on-ones or, look, it's a run day. That's the day that's built for O'Cyrus Torrence, right? He should be doing that. But he had a kick-out block. They trapped, actually it was Shaq Thompson who they wind up kind of wham blocking. And, boy, he rooted him big time. And there was sprung for a big gain there. And I thought O'Cyrus was awesome today. And I thought on defense, the guy that really stood out was Matt Milano, which I guess is another player that in a day like this, where it's a lot of quick game, a lot of run, his processing skills, especially, he's been going up against this Bills offense for a long time. He can read these plays so well, and he's so quick to trigger and diagnose. And, for a vet, he was thudding pretty hard. There was one rep that he took KJ Hamler all the way to the ground. And KJ Hamler, one thing that I've learned is he's a yapper, dude. Mm-hmm. He's in everybody's face after every single rep. Nobody celebrates a quick comeback route on off coverage that every person in the world would catch like KJ Hamler will. And so I think he gets under everyone's skin. So he kind of asked for it a little bit. I think Milano he dumped him pretty strong on one rep where he was pursuing towards the sideline.
So that's Hamler taking the Isaiah McKenzie role.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Right.
I said to Joe Biscaglia, I said, Hamler's the new Isaiah McKenzie. And Joe's like, yeah, right up to the same number and everything. Like, that's literally who he is on this team.
Yep. And one thing about Hamler, I think it was the first practice Sorry, I'll have this for you sometimes. He was one of the guys mic'd up, like for Hard Knocks. And,
Oh, boy.
you know, a normal thing might have one guy mic'd up if the Bills are doing their own thing. But as this massive production goes, and we're going to get to see a lot of these practices and a lot of these storylines, like this hit might be on the Hamler story because he's trying to, you know, find his way on this team if there's any way there. And they said the same thing, like, oh, he's mic'd up and he talks all the time. Like he is just a crazy man out there. So we might all get a good look at exactly what that is. So, Jared,
So
you have something?
Yeah, I was going to say, so Hamler's is probably going to be the storyline this year of the guy that's on the bubble. That is he going to make it? Is he not going to make it? In the last episode, we're all wondering what KJ Hamler's going to. Is he that guy?
Unless it's Shavers who can't catch a break, right? Like Shavers got some good run with Curtis Samuel out for injury, and he gets that ankle issue. And last year, the way McDermott talked about Shavers at the end of the training camp, like I thought he was going to make the team. Like he raved about Shavers, and he is just still really scraping by trying to find a spot. And I'm not even sure, Joe, when we did our 53-man roster projection, we didn't have a spot for Shavers.
Yeah, this wide receiver depth chart's even more difficult to project right now because of the injuries, right? You've got Samuels out of the lineup. Shavers went down, and he got on Monday or Sunday, he got a ton of first team reps at like every spot. And I thought that was probably a little bit to do with the lack of Samuel being in, but they do sprinkle in Hamler. Hamler's getting work as a punt returner and a kick returner. And so I do think that there's some different pathways that we need to be open to at wide receiver. Of course, outside of the perceived top three, but that more Samuel, Hamler, Chenault, Shavers, Virgil bucket is pretty competitive.
Well, and I think at some point the Bills organization has to start wondering, you know, do they get tired of the fact that Samuels is just not available? If it's turf toe, if it's a hamstring, it's constant. And I've seen it a million times with older players. I mean, when they start to break down, some guys just can't stop breaking down. And he seems to be getting into that range. So it wouldn't shock me if there is a big, upset in that position as far as somebody that makes this team, that Samuels is one of the guys is involved in that decision-making. So, I mean, the problem is, can you cut him? And what's the problem? You know, how does the money, the cap hit, you know, how does that affect your team? And then if he's hurt, you can't trade him. Right. No. So it's tough. It's a tough decision.
Well, it might not surprise you to know that, like, I was thinking about that idea of like, all right, well, who would want Samuel? Who could be someone that could go down that road if he was healthy and if the Bills wanted to save the money? I arrived at Tennessee. You know, Tennessee's got Calvin Ridley and what else? Like Traylon Burks is out and hurt, and there's not a lot there. So I don't know if you call Tennessee and make an offer, but, you know, the Bills, they finally started to see what he could bring them late last year. And I got to think that Bean signs him for 3, gets a glimpse of it at the end of last year. He's going to be eager to try and give it a little more time.
But the other thing is this too: if you're gonna highlight Shavers, you're gonna highlight him, and you're gonna give them the opportunity to play very well. And now you're worried about if you do keep Samuel, and how do you hide those guys on the practice squad? You know, if they're going to go somewhere else. So it's like it's a sticky situation.
Yeah. All right. He's not the only player injured. We've got a lot of injuries to catch up on. The question is, how concerned should anyone be? So we'll run through all the players that missed practice, a couple that left practice today as well. Plenty to get to as we continue to recap here on the Bill Squad show. So the injury rundown, level of concern. It's coming up here with Jeremy White, Joe Marino, and Jerry Ostrowski on the Bill Squad show. Hey, when it comes to fantasy football, yeah, that's right, fantasy football, it's back. Fire up the group chat, get your draft board ready, buckle up for a season filled with breakouts, busts, and all the overreactions that we live for. It's all going on at Yahoo Fantasy. I got my notification. Leagues are firing back up, so that's great. Yahoo Fantasy, and you should join there too, as I have. Whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league, what do they have on Yahoo? They've got lots of, well, first off, the presentation's the great. I find it to be the best website to actually use. We have a league running through Yahoo for probably 10 years now. I run my guillotines through Yahoo as well. And to celebrate 28 years of fantasy greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 years, giving you more ways to play, more ways to draft, and more ways to win. It all begins August 4th, so stay tuned and get started. by creating or joining a Yahoo Fantasy Football League at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. That's yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. And let's make this fantasy season the best one yet. So getting to the injuries, take a deep breath. Now practicing today. Dorian Williams, Tyrell Shavers, Cedric Van Pran Granger, Curtis Samuel, Terrell Bernard, Elijah Moore, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, Tyler Bass, Caden Prather, and Spencer Brown. And guys, it feels like it's been a slow build right at the start of camp, right? We had non-football injured list, Spencer Brown, the back's flaring up. I don't know if you've got a length of time when the back flaring up becomes a concern. Jerry, are we already there? For Spencer Brown, I mean, missing a day, missing a week, missing 2 weeks. Like, well, we can run through each of these, but like, where do you land on it?
Well, that was my question to Joe earlier, and also to you as well. How do you feel this training staff is, or this organization right now is with these players? Are they being overly cautious, or we got a pandemic of injury going on? Spencer Brown, I'm not worried about. I mean, he was doing a bunch of movement drills, and Joe, I don't know if he was out there again today doing that stuff over in the corner. They would call that Club Med, is where they would call that back in the day when you were injured and you went over and hung out with the third or fourth strength coach and worked out. But I'm not concerned about him. The thing that I am concerned about, again, a lot of soft tissue injuries. And then the Dalton Kincaid on this list, his knee is sore. I don't know what the extent of that PCL injury was from last year. Is it completely gone? Is it slightly torn? So if this is something that this young player is going to have to deal with constantly, where we're constantly trying to save his leg, save his knee or whatever, get it fixed and then let him get healthy and come back if that's the point. Now, I don't know if that's the case. Those are the things like that to me are what's concerning. I'm not concerned about Elijah Moore's leg soreness. Hell, he hasn't hardly done anything in the last couple of years. So now that he's being a focal point of the offense, it seems like, I can see why his legs are tired. The Curtis Samuel situation, we just talked about it, but the soft tissue injury stuff just drives me crazy. And then really Dalton Kincaid, what is the extent of this knee injury? And is this going to be something he constantly deals with?
Well, the play that the injury happened on was during the Sunday practice on a corner route, and it was down the field, maybe 20 to 30 yards. And Josh put one in the air, and Dalton was between Milano and Rapp, and the ball was in the air just a little longer than you thought it would, which kind of made it a contested situation. And it was a pretty competitive rep. Dalton made the play, but there was definitely contact from both directions. And I think that affected the way he landed. And he got up a little bit ginger. He finished the practice. And then, of course, today we find out that he's going to sit today with some knee soreness. And so hopefully it's just being cautious, but that's the type of normal stuff that happens in the context of football, right? And you can't be nervous at any time, he's bumped, that there's going to be some type of injury. And we know, to his credit, he played through a lot last year and stuff that people have said usually shuts down a player. And I can appreciate that toughness, but at some point he's got to be the best version of himself to go out there and be the player he was brought in to be. So that's the one that gives me the most pause. It's still July. Obviously there's a lot of time, and that's probably not the time to push guys, especially in the first padded practice of camp. But that's the one that at least gives me a little bit of aggravation about where it's at right now. I feel like everything else is being cautious. Terrell Bernard, he didn't practice today, but even when they were there was a pretty long period where they were doing formational checks, was like walkthrough type stuff. He was the Mike linebacker in there communicating, barking out stuff. Like he was on the field a little bit in street clothes, but so that one feels like it's okay. But yeah, the Kincaid one, not ideal. Knox got into a little bit of activity today. He was catching passes from Rob Boris, the tight ends coach. So he ramped up a little bit. I think it'll be a matter of time, but you were watching this practice today, and the tight ends on the field are Zach Davidson and Jackson Hawes, and then Lecky Letu out of the UDFAs out there. And you could tell Rob Boris was having to coach a lot today to make sure guys knew what the heck to do. Matt Sokol as well, a new addition.
Yeah, it's funny, like looking at these injuries, it's like there's a concentration of injuries at certain positions. Tight end is one of them. Receiver is another one. I mean, Elijah Moore missing time here along with Curtis Samuel. And I mean, even Caden Prather to that point. Like you've got an opportunity because it's earlier in camp for maybe some of the younger guys to make a name that they normally wouldn't. And, Joe, I know you sent this out to your text club about with the injury to Samuel, you thought Moore would have a chance here. Turns out he's not available. And those opportunities went to Tyrell Shavers. And also, we've gone long enough in. We got to hear your breakdown of Keon Coleman, who had such a good day the other day. And another one today, right? Like Coleman has had back-to-back really strong days here at training camp after the first practice where he went 0 for 5 on targets. And it was like a terrible day, but just didn't come through in practice number 1. And we're seeing, Keon be Keon here.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching Keon today. First observation is that scramble drill, Josh is looking for Keon. I had a nice rollout to the right where he found him, and then he had a rollout where he launched one between Bishop and Trey White, and neither one of them made the pick. One of them should, but because they both went for it, it wound up, kind of working against each other. But that was twice today where he was looking for Keon on scramble drill. But on the one-on-one session, I was able to get down to the wide receivers a little bit because the O-line, D-line went 1 rep everyone, and then they did like an inside 9-on-9 session. So I was like, okay, I'm watching receivers and corners. And there was some really competitive reps between Hairston and Coleman. And one that Coleman was able to win on a vertical route, but it was a really good back shoulder adjustment. I mean, he was really late with that adjustment to catch it behind him. And Hairston was he maintained that vertical leverage. So I think Hairston thought he was probably good without giving up completion, but a really good ball adjustment. And then there was another rep where Keon was able to really out physical Maxwell, which is what you want to see, right? That matchup, right. There's a 30-pound difference in the two guys. So they were in phase, but Keon kept bumping him, right? And he wound up being able to break away late, but then he tried to one-hand the ball unnecessarily, and he didn't make the play. It's like, man, that would have been a good one to haul in. So there's some good back and forth between those two guys. And Keon, he still has some of the warts that you're concerned with. Like, you're not going to watch him and feel like he's super explosive or like there's a breakaway element to the way that he goes, but there's probably a little bit more of a cerebralness about him right now that I can appreciate. But I think the flip side of that is, when I watch Maxwell Hairston out there, I see a guy that's really, really talented. But when you watch Trey White or even a Dane Jackson or even a Jamarcus Ingram, you can just tell those are far more repped players, right? That kind of have a little bit more know-how in what they're doing, where the ups and downs of Hairston are pretty evident to watch.
Well, I think you look at it in the same way as you look at Keon, and he's starting to get better at this than he was last year, and it's the word intention. When a player understands what his assignment is and how to play it, he has intention in his movement. It's not just things are going all over the place. And your assessment of Keon excites me because all those things you talked about shows me he's using that physicality that he has an advantage of on cornerbacks in this league. And that's what's going to get him going. He's got to be that physical receiver. And it seems to me anyway, through what I've seen online and then what you've talked about, that's what he's doing. But yeah, there's got to be an intention in your movement, and you can't waste movement at that league, because when you waste movement, you're late. When you're late, you give up plays.
Well, and Trey White, after every single rep, Trey White will do his rep, and then he will stand off to the side and watch every single other corner do the same thing. And you might call this guy the corners coach out there with the feedback that he gives everyone after every single play. And after that one particular rep with Maxwell Hairston, where he was kept on getting bumped by Keon, Trey White, I was standing right there, so I got a chance to kind of listen and see this all happen. He was saying, hey, don't sit there and try to bring that fight back to him, right? Don't keep bumping off him. Just stay with him.
Yeah.
There's no reason to keep trying to bump into him to knock him off his route. No, just be there, because that was creating that separation for Keon. So good learning opportunity there for Maxwell. But yes, Keon definitely playing more to his skill set, I think.
This morning, we talked about this exact pairing of Trey White and Maxwell Hairston, because I feel like a lot of Bills fans, guys, are going to be they're going to have reasonable expectations on Trey due to all the injuries. But, if he drops 10 to 15% of his ability, but the mental side is still right where it needs to be, that's the kind of thing that can hold him above Hairston until the mental catches up with the athletic for Hairston.
I think where we're at. Yeah. I right now, and look, I get there's a lot of time that needs to play out. We haven't even touched the preseason game. There's a lot of camp. There's a lot of practices. Right now, I think it's going to be a hard sell for me to believe that Trey White's not your week 1 starter.
And the other thing is, I think with the injuries that Trey had in successive seasons, the ACL, and then you have the Achilles, maybe his drop-off was the last couple of years was more than it is now. You heard him at that passionate press conference talk about how hard he worked, and he probably got a pretty good percentage of that athletic ability back. Is he back to rookie Trey White? No, nobody is at that age. But he's a young 30, and he's incredibly talented, incredibly smart. And with that, being longer away from that injury situation, I mean, you might have found something.
Well, you heard him. Trey said, I had the two worst injuries a corner can have. ACL and Achilles, man. For all the Trey White goalie academy and the charismatic stuff and, looking at the play sheet and just joking and ribbing with anybody and everyone, that dude is a fiery competitor. And I wouldn't bet against him. I really wouldn't. I mean, I know it was when he first came through, you're kind of like, really, is this going to happen? But there's been new information. We've seen this guy practice, and I think he's looking pretty strong. And I think the other side of that is that Maxwell Hairston right now, and you wouldn't expect it on July 28th, he's not ready. He's not ready to be a starting NFL corner, but obviously there's a lot of time for that to play out.
Jerry, to this point because I'm thinking about Trey White's career arc where he comes in and he's pretty much great right away. And when he suffers the first ACL injury, it takes him a long time to come back. Mentally, he talked about how he battled being away from football for a long time, and he hadn't really had to battle like that before. I wonder if, a second injury, if he thought he might have been done, and here he is, I might not be done, and almost like a renewed sense of optimism, later in your career, before you're done, to find a little bit more in there, and if that can be somewhat empowering for a player.
No, definitely. I think it's there's a couple aspects to this whole thing. The first one is when you talk about the body and you talk about injuries like that, as an athlete, the one thing that that you can trust is your body, right? You know how you feel, what you are, what you can do. And when that goes away and you can't trust the most simple thing you've got, that's hard on an athlete, and especially that injury. I mean, it takes a long time to trust yourself to where you're not thinking about every step. The other side of it is, and Joe and I talked about it last show, and we talked about this aspect, and Trey White has chosen to do this. When he wakes up in the morning and puts his feet on the ground, what's he doing, Joe? He's fighting his rear end off. He didn't want to go out the way that his career was heading. And he's a great player. He's a prideful athlete, and he wanted to go out on his terms. And some guys give up. Some guys don't. He hasn't given up. And it's awesome to watch. That press conference the other day, of all the things that have gone on this offseason and all the things we've heard this preseason at St. John Fisher, his press conference was amazing. And I was ready to go back outside and start hitting the plates in the garage and see if I could get me a 36-hour contract or something, man, because it was awesome. And I appreciate it, and I know what he's thinking. I know what he's going through. He's choosing to go out on his terms, not anybody else's terms.
You can like and subscribe, hit that like button if you can. Also, drop a comment. If there's a player you want us to discuss a little bit later we haven't gotten to yet, drop a comment. We'll bring up some players in the fourth and final segment. Make sure we're cleaning things up on how practice has gone so far. Practice again tomorrow for the Bills. And then later in the week, the battle, the blue and red at the stadium's happening. The Hall of Fame games this week. We are getting on to real football, closer and closer to real football. So player you want to know about, drop it in the comments, and we'll sweep everything up when we get to our final segment. When we get back, though, there is another positional battle that we've discussed quite a bit. It is, of course, of great importance, and that's the safety spot. So we'll check in on Cole Bishop, who is ever so important to this team. It's coming up next on the Bill Squad Show. Hey, we've all been there logging on early, waiting for forever for concert tickets to go on sale. Only lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about, of course, making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Gametime comes in. Gametime makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime. You can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. So if you're tired of endless scrolling, trying to find the best deals, Gametime's zone deals pick the best seats in your section for you. And if you wonder what your view will be like, the app shows a panoramic seat view, so no surprises. With Gametime, the price you see is the price you pay. There are no hidden fees. The Gametime guarantee has your back with cancellation protection as well if plans change. So take the guesswork out of buying concert and show tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNNFL. That's LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. To the safety battle, gentlemen. Cole Bishop, we all kind of thought his job to lose. DeMar Hamlin, Derek Forrest. Like, you've got other players in the mix here. Cam Lewis, how's it all shake out? But I want to say, I can say this as someone that voted Cole Bishop as the 6th most important member of the Bills this year, right, in Joe's top 10 players. I think Bishop's super important. So how do you feel like it's looked for Bishop? My eye, he looks super athletic. Like, I see that part of his game. I see that out there. But again, it kind of gets back to our Trey White, Max Hairston thing. It's going to be the mental side, right? It's going to be how he fits in with the defense and how he starts to understand it back there. And he's getting a lot of looks.
I think we lost Joe real quick.
Lost Joe for a minute? All right.
But no, he is getting a lot of looks, and I think he's getting more comfortable with what he's supposed to be doing. Cole Bishop was drafted to be that guy. He's an incredibly athletic. He's a hammer safety. He can play downhill as well as coverage stuff, and it's been good to see him pick things up. You know how these things go, Jeremy. When we go to camp right away, everybody wants to single in on one single rep. They want to look at one single play. We all report about it. We haven't heard much about Cole Bishop. I mean, we've heard that he's had flashes, he's doing good, but it's not like we've had anything concerning. So that makes me happy because we're not talking about him. That means he's doing his job. And obviously we know we have in Taylor Rapp. We know what DeMar can do. We know what Lewis can do. Joe made a good point today on the Discord channel. Whatever opportunity or plan they have for Jordan Hancock, we haven't seen it yet because he really hasn't any opportunities to do it. So we don't know what's going on there. But I don't know. I think for a lot of people that were nervous about the safety room, I think the safety room's okay. I mean, you've got multiple time starters as backups and things of that nature. Big time young quality candidates that are fighting for spots. So I don't know. I think it's good. But no, Bishop, I think, has been doing well.
We're battling a little bit of a technical issue here with Joe and his Wi-Fi, so we'll try to get that squared away and see if we can get him rolling on the Bishop thing. One thing he pointed out, you mentioned the Discord channel and Joe's Text Club. He basically said that Rapp and Bishop have been kind of tied at the hip. Like, these two have been together out there quite a bit, and this was his job to lose scenario where they really want him to be the guy that takes this job, and someone would have to come up and pass him. I'm not sure if there's anybody they feel could really truly threaten that, whether that's DeMar Hamlin. Because last year, Jerry, the big thing about the safety position was it never got off the ground. Right. Bishop was hurt all of camp. Mike Edwards comes in, never gets in. Like, right. it just never made a difference. And with this time around, Cole Bishop is getting mini camp, little hurt, but now he's back at camp. He's getting the reps, the important reps. So Joe's back. Okay. Bishop and Rapp, you were talking to the text group about that, talking to the Discord about that. What have you seen so far from Bishop and the safety position?
Well, I think, first of all, Bishop's your starter. Like, it's very, very clear to me that everything that's happening is intentional for Bishop to start. And when you look at the practice field, Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop are joined at the hip in every single thing that they do. They're communicating constantly, whether they're they're running a drill or not, they are talking. And so it's very clear to me that they're preparing to be that tandem. And Sean McDermott talked about that during his press conference on this morning, so Monday morning, and how, duos like that, they have to be really, really tight with everything they do. And so that's happening where DeMar Hamlin's not really part of this mix in terms of the way that I'm watching this unfold. And so everything is pointing towards Bishop being that guy. I think he's been mostly solid. There's been some good plays on the ball. There's been some good one-on-one reps. It's been good run fills downhill. There was a rep today where Josh Palmer got free for a deep route, and I was watching the safety rotation, and they spun. They went into it's like almost like an inverted coverage where they had to kind of switch positions, and they both drove on the same route, which left Palmer wide open. And immediately, Taylor Rapp goes over and has the conversation with Cole Bishop about that. So I think the big takeaway is that this is Bishop's job to lose, and it doesn't feel like there's much of a pathway for him to not be the guy. And at this point, it's just getting reps and developing that chemistry with Taylor Rapp to be the next great safety duo in Buffalo, hopefully.
Yeah. It's with young players. We just had this conversation about Trey White and Hairston. I guess the question is the player that understands the defense so much better in their understanding that I'm willing to take a drop off in the athleticism and the skills. And, this gets to Bishop versus Hamlin. Hamlin started for this team, not really thought of as a very athletic safety. So do you feel like this could be a spot where, even if there are some bumps along the way, it's time to ride with Bishop, almost no matter what? Like you got to do this. This is what you tried to do. He frees you up to do more things back there because of the athleticism. So you're willing to take the lumps?
I think so. And I think especially when you look at this draft and the last draft and you're trying to figure out where your young player contributions are going to be. And, you kind of have some questions about where some of that's going to happen with this year's guys. But Cole Bishop is a player that, whether it's McDermott's resume at the safety position or just needing someone to step in there and elevate what you got from Damar Hamlin, like Bishop's your pathway to do it. And so I don't think there's any pathway for this to happen other than just he's got to get reps. He has to play. He's got to fail forward a little bit. But I think he's positioned well. He played almost 500 snaps last year. He started the AFC Championship game. He's had a full offseason kind of gearing towards this. This is where everyone's fingers pointing at this happening. So I think it just needs to play itself out with Bishop, kind of a ride or die answer across from Taylor Rapp.
Joe, in watching practice the last couple of days, where does Derek Forrest fit in? And is he actually getting an opportunity to fight for one of those backup spots, or is he just kind of a forgotten piece?
Yeah, no, he's getting a lot of run because there's so much when you talk about that next group. There's been so much interchangeability with some of those players being in the slot. So like Cam Lewis playing a lot in the slot. Jordan Hancock's playing a lot at safety, actually. I haven't seen him take many slot reps at all. But then to Corey Couch, who was a slot last year, is playing a lot more back at safety. So they've mixed up those groupings after Rapp and Bishop, but it's kind of been Forrest and Hamlin and then, kind of those other players interchangeable. But, I haven't seen anything from Forrest right now, whether it's impact or groupings that he's played with that tells me that he's got a clear path to making this team where other guys just seem to have more versatility. And I think that'll probably help them when they're sorting out the final 53.
Right.
Bill Squad Show here. You can drop us a comment. We'll get to some of the players you want to talk about. There's one player I want to get to before we get to our full question answer segment, but text it in on the YouTube channel. Tylan Grable. The Spencer Brown absence of all the absences, is this the one that might actually determine a roster spot the most? Grable, like who's this, or at least the job? Who's the swing tackle? Who's the backup? How are they going to do this? So have you looked at Tylan Grable so far in the absence of Spencer Brown?
Yeah, it seems like between him and Ryan Vandermark, they're both getting a lot of opportunity. They kind of rotated every other day who's been the primary guy to run with the first team. And then with the second team, they're kind of going back and playing more the left side. So they're both getting a lot of work. They're both playing well. Joe Brady said something a few days ago that leads me to believe this is comfortably going to be Tylan Grable's job. It's that Tylan can play 4 spots. That's what he said. He can play 4 spots. And so that's going to be pretty big, especially with the center position right now is a little bit stressed with Cedric Van Granger not available. They've been playing, Kendrick Green's getting a lot of work there. And then it's kind of pushing Alec Anderson into some other alignments. So I think it's Grable, Grable won the job twice last year initially, right? Vandermark wasn't active and Grable was the swing. And then Grable got injured. And then when he came back, even after Vandermark started a game against Kansas City, Grable was again the active player over Vandermark. So I think that's where it's trending. Grable's a guy that's got 3 more years left on the rookie deal. Ryan Vandermark's going to be a restricted free agent next year. So I think they're going to want to give Grable every opportunity to prove what he can do this year in a depth role. And then, based on the decisions that are made with Edwards and McGovern, could Grable factor into the mix as a potential starter in 2026? I think he's got the upper hand for all that.
I have a quick kind of an assessment and to go along with the question before we get into the Q&A part of the show. Are you kind of picking up this at practice? And if you haven't watched it, maybe take a look at it and shoot me a text or whatever. It almost seems to me, is this a Bobby Babich is the D coordinator, but maybe Ryan Nielsen is kind of handling the front seven and Bobby's kind of running the back end? Or is it, am I reading too much into this? Because you talked about yesterday a lot of 5-man pressures. We all know Nielsen was a part of that in the OTAs, run a lot of that stuff. He's with the defensive line, the pressure packages and all that. We know that they give certain coaches certain responsibilities to handle during the week. Does it seem any way to you, or have you noticed Nielsen maybe being highly involved in the front seven and Bobby being the guy that runs the back end as far as practice goes?
I don't have a direct thought on that other than what makes that challenging to get a read on is when they do individual, the defensive line goes on the field that's like off in the corner.
Okay.
So unless I go with them, which I haven't, I've
Right.
stayed on the major field, I wouldn't be able to pick that up. And then once it gets to the team, all the coaches are off to the side anyway. So I'll try to see what I can glean on that over the rest of the week.
Thank you.
Bill Squad Show. Jerry making a request on what to take a look for. You can do that next. We're going to come back, hit the like button, subscribe, of course, to the Locked On Bills channel here on YouTube, and hit that like button for us. Join us whenever we do our shows. Of course, we got 2 a week, and right now Mondays and Thursdays, closer to the season. We'll maybe tweak that schedule, but we'll keep you posted on that. Any player you want to know about, fire it in the comments. We'll run through a few more here as we wrap it up on the Bill Squad Show here on the Locked On Bills channel. All right, catching up here. Let's get to some comments. They want to know about some players, and it's only a couple practices in. Each of us has, we've got somewhat of an idea, but it's not every single rep, every single thing. So we talked about Bishop, and I wanted to bring up this name because he's one that we're going to talk about quite a bit. But Landon Jackson, Mike Griffin wants to know, how about Landon Jackson, an edge rusher who, right? We're seeing what he can do, what his skill set is as a 3rd-round pick that in some mock drafts was pegged to go in the 1st round. So what's there and what have we seen so far from Landon Jackson?
I describe Landon in every rep that I saw as hard charging with a lot of effort. And, I wouldn't say that he's cleanly beaten blocks or anything like that, but he's getting off, he's playing fast, he's not thinking a lot, and he's active trailing plays. But I'm curious to see now as the pads are on and you get to see more of the technique and kind of where that goes. But the effort, intensity, it's all there.
We would describe that as a rolling ball of Ginsu knives. is what we used to call those guys.
Keep it there. Javon Solomon.
Yeah, I liked him a lot yesterday in practice, where when he can pin his ears back and rush, you can tell that there's something there. It's just, can you trust him to play against the run? And even in the limited reps that he played last year, there was some real struggles against the run. I'm thinking about that Miami touchdown that, boy, he just got completely washed. So he's going to have to, that's the thing about being a good pass rusher is you have to earn the right to rush the passer, right? You got to get on the field. You got to be able to play both downs. And then,
right.
When it becomes long and late and high leverage, who are the snaps going to go to? So I think he's got some stuff to prove. It's big that he helps on special teams. I think that's going to help him stick around. And I think it helps that he's probably the most like Michael Hoyt in terms of maybe what the vision is for that role. And if they want some of those elements early in the season. So I think there's some things that are helping him, but to me, it's just going to come down to how much they can trust him against the run. And I'm not sure yet where that is. I think we'll get a better feel for that in preseason.
That's kind of how I see him. He's a special teams. He's a heavy special teams player that's in a pass rush package specialist. When they've got certain packages where they want to rush the passer, he's in the game. That's the way I see it. I don't see him as a viable option to hold up against the run for a long period of time.
Nick in Depew writes in, I also feel like I haven't heard a lot about the running backs besides Cook. Ray Davis looking out of his 2nd year. Had another person ask about Ty Johnson. And that does strike me as interesting. I don't know, is running back a hard position to really scout at training camp? Like you're going to want to see games. You're going to want to see a little more of that. Their one-on-one drills are right. Like what are backs doing out there that could impress you? Showing the right vision, showing the cutback lane, whatever it might be. Like today was a run-heavy day. Did we see anything?
I think running back is a very, very difficult position to scout in practice. And, whether that's this type of practice or I've been to Senior Bowl practices or Shrine practices, it's like so much of what they do is when the bullets are flying and they can show their contact balance and their vision and like making people miss, and they're not actually trying to tackle anybody out there. So it is a hard position to really get a good takeaway from. But I will say one of the themes of the Monday or the Sunday practice, I keep thinking today is, Monday, but yesterday was Sunday. They did some two-back stuff with Davis and Johnson on the field at the same time, where Ty Johnson was playing in the slot. So that was interesting to see that unfold. You're seeing both Ty Johnson and Ray Davis involved in the kick return rotation. Ty Johnson's has a big role in the punt team. So they're definitely sprinkling these guys in, but that's more my takeaways. It's more how they're being used, not necessarily how effective they are.
I do have to bring this up, and since James Cook's name was in that comment line, I will bring this up. Yesterday, Dan Mitchell on YouTube had an interview with Zach Hiller, who is James Cook's agent. We've heard Brandon Beane speak quite a bit about James Cook as of late. Any possible things going on with him and his potential contract that maybe you've heard some things? I don't know.
Maybe there's some good momentum. Maybe there is.
Yeah.
I saw him have a really good exchange with Terry Pagula yesterday at practice. And, if you're pissed off at the world, you're not going to, be dapping up the owner. So that felt pretty good. And I mean, I've spent a lot of time around James Cook. He's got great practice energy. I was standing next to Carl Jones in practice today, and James, like between drills, came up and said, was talking about him about his time playing at Syracuse. I mean, he seems like a guy that's in good spirits, and maybe there's some good momentum there. But I think whether there's momentum or not, James Cook, I think he knows the best thing he needs to do is go be the best, most productive player he can be for the Bills. And if that extension comes now, or if that extension comes after the season, that's going to be his path for that being the dollar amount that he's hoping for.
I thought Brandon Beane at his opening press conference of training camp softened the tone a lot on Cook. The last time we heard from Beane, it was, maybe we get back to it next year. And that's like the equivalent of Cook's $15 million tweet, where it's like, whoa, that's a big statement when Beane says that. And then to start training camp, he said all the way down to, I hope he's here next year. And that might mean that he hopes that Cook's number comes down or Cook's number gets to where their number is. I still would not find it shocking at all if they extended Cook in the next week or month. I don't know what's going to happen, how it's going to go, but I know there are plenty of people out there that think the Bills will never pay a running back, and I don't think they subscribe to that. Whatever. I might take 10 years to be proven right on that, but I think the Cook scenario is still very much at play, and it would not shock me if there was something done this week or next week.
But Jeremy, you said a lot of really good stuff the other day, and I watched your piece with Joe from camp the other day, and you said a couple things that I thought were very, very, very good. One being this: why is it assumed that Cook won't take less than $15 million a year? I mean, we all do it, right? If we're selling a house, we put it for this amount, knowing we'll take this amount, right? So maybe just maybe he's doing the same thing. And then the other thing you said that I thought was really interesting and I thought was good is, why do we continually want to burn second and third round picks just to shuttle them off in 4 years?
Yeah.
Why do we want to do that?
That's what I put up a poll about it and asked the question: what's a better use of assets? $11 million on James Cook or another second round pick on a running back? And that was pretty close to 50-50, the final results. And there's a way to phrase it differently, which is, what's a better use of assets? $11 million on James Cook and a second round pick, or a second round pick on a running back and $11 million somewhere else. Like, I know that's a big number for a running back, but like, if you're taking running backs with your second and third round picks, you are capping that pick at 4 years. And I don't want to do that. If they're going to bring back Cook, okay, great. I'm into that. If they're never going to sign running backs, I could get behind that. I want the picks pushed further down to like the Ray Davis territory, 4th and 5th and 6th round picks, because I want to find my second rounders on the TJ Sanders and Keon Coleman's. Like, if those picks hit, you're not just going to, or Cyrus Torrance. You're not just going to say, well, we don't pay defensive tackles, we don't pay receivers. No. These are positions that are harder to come by. So I want to make sure I'm not using my premium assets on a position that I would never pay. And I don't think that they would never pay. It just might have to line up for the Bills in a different way than $15 million per year.
Well, I mean, I think there's some good logic in what you're saying. I don't know that Brandon Beane has had the opportunity to realistically pay a running back. Was Devin Singletary? Is that the name? Like,
Pretty
that's
much
a limited player too. The thing that's great about James Cook is that he gives the home run ability that Devin Singletary didn't, right? And I think most people would pick James Cook over Devin Singletary, and I have a lot of respect over Devin Singletary. So who is the back that Brandon Beane has had the opportunity to pay that he hasn't? I know that there's been
very true.
Possibilities of guys he could trade or free agent moves, but there's always been a young back on the roster that kind of deserve the opportunity. So I don't put it past Brandon Beane. This is a guy that was part of a front office that picked Christian McCaffrey in the top 10, and he called it a sleep good at night pick. This is a part of a guy that was part of a front office that paid D'Angelo Williams, James Stewart, and Mike Tolbert at the same time. They picked a running back in the first round after they already had D'Angelo Williams. So I don't put it past Brandon Beane to pay a running back. I think it just has to be the right one at the right dollar amount.
Yeah, they've also, if you think of all the picks they've spent on running backs, it's Singletary, Cook, Zach Moss, Nyheim Hines, Ray Davis. And that's how many. Hines was like a 6th-round pick trade, but whatever. I just would like to see them save those picks. They've also, I was thinking about this today, because Jerry, you sent a little screenshot about the wide receiver conversation with Beane. And I was just thinking about it, how the big debate about how he values receivers. It really is a debate that's just lost in the words of it, because I know he values receivers on some level. He has twice traded a 3rd-round pick for half a season of one. So, the disconnect for my stance and where his would be on this would be, I would say, why did you just spend the 3rd-round pick on one for 4 years instead of, a couple of rentals? So whatever, they're doing fine. I think their receiver conversation is going pretty well. I'd say with this about receiver, one more point, guys. And Joe, I'm interested in know your thoughts on this. It sounds like there's a slow drum beat of Palmer and Allen are getting together on this. Palmer and Allen. It's not the biggest things at practice, but they're after practice talking. They're working on stuff. He's smooth out there. I think he looks like a nice smooth receiver, kind of looks the part, and it's not popping huge, but I get a little drum beat of Josh Palmer in my ear when I'm at these camp practices.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's been a good connection to this point. I think Palmer's been as advertised. I think there's obviously a lot of momentum for that to work out. But, when this team's in 11 personnel, it's 0, 5, and 10 on the field. Those are the three. And it's almost like Shakir's lost in this because we just assume who he is. And McDermott was asked about Shakir this morning and said, look, he mentioned the Ravens game. He said he tried to play hurt in that Ravens game. He's like, did you see how our offense looked? Like, he matters. He called him a tier 1 player for him, like an important part of the straw that stirs the drink for this offense. So I'm excited to see how Palmer acclimates. They definitely have used him in the short and deep parts of the field. And, his ability to win on the outside, I think, is going to open up so much for what they want to do in the middle of the field with Kincaid and Shakir.
Obviously, Bills are concerned about the long-term injury status of that room, though, because they went out and they released Darryl Porter Jr. today and signed wide receiver Deon Cain. So I'd expect to see Shavers and those guys down for a little bit of time with them making that move.
All right. Next show up Thursday. Camp continues. Another practice tomorrow. Thursday as well. Thursday's the Hall of Fame game. And on we go. The blue and the red scrimmage is going to be at Highmark Stadium, or practice/scrimmage. Joint practice is coming up. It is the Chargers and the Lions.
Ooh,
in the Hall of Fame game.
There's something we got to do before we get out of here.
What's that?
So on last show, Jerry and I,
yes,
Jerry and I, we had a few breakout moments, and we debated what type of golf ball you hit. And don't tell us yet. I predicted that you were like an Encore guy. Jerry, you can tell him what you thought. It was a type.
All right. I said you were a purist, that you probably wore knickers and long socks or whatever and hit persimmon woods. But I figured if you could play a balada, you would. But I said Pro V1. I said Pro V1s, either 1s or 1Xs. Or my fallback was you were the deep research dude that found the golf ball that was just like the Pro V1, but wasn't $5 a ball. So,
well, I'll tell you, I played the Encore Vero X1s.
Oh my gosh.
I played the Encore Vero X1s. I like to tell my wife that I got a sponsorship deal with Encore. I do. I've loved their balls. I've known the guys at Encore for many, many years, play their golf balls all the time.
Joe, you had inside information.
I didn't.
Yes, you did.
I'm observer. I take notes on people. I got work with these guys. I had to know what I was getting into, and I need to make sure, I read the tea leaves here. I figured that was what Jeremy did.
All I'm saying is it was an Encore Vero X1 that won the long drive at the Bills Media Golf Tournament, and it's an Encore Vero X1 that just led me and a partner to the Transit Valley Member Guest Championship 3-day tournament. Won that. So I mean, like, Encore's piling up the awards. What can I say?
Hey, as your homeboy that plays 3 to 4 rounds a week, and you got a sponsorship, send them a little love. I mean, if that golf ball is that good, I need to play it, I guess.
All right, I'll make a call. I'll make it. You send me the address, and I'll make sure Encore gets you some balls.
You tell Encore they can come sponsor me. I'll put them on my bag.
All right, very good. Yeah. Hey, man.
Hey, that's a fist bump for you, Joe.
I'll take it. Taking the dub. Big dubs here.
Big dubs.
I thought you guys were going to ask me something about Gabe Davis. All right, wasn't that the play too?
No, much more serious than that.
No, much more serious. Much more serious.
To answer that, like we tackled the Davis conversation forever ago. He was asked by Kay Adams about that, right? Like, what about the Bills? And my feeling on this is the only way it would ever happen is like Keon was out for the year, and they're looking to replace a big body receiver that they think could play physical. Like, that's the only way Gabe Davis is coming back. So
I agree. He didn't sound overly excited about the idea of Buffalo. I think he wants opportunity, and he might be surprised to find out that there's not much opportunity out there for him, but certainly feels like there's more targets to be had somewhere else.
He might also have good relationships still here, but might feel spurned by the team. Like, I did everything right. I was the Iron Bill, and you didn't want me. Like, he has to feel like he wasn't valued here by the people that signed the deals. So,
well, ask Baker Mayfield what happens to you when you play through injury.
Yeah,
if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah. And if you're Baker Mayfield, just go out, sign somewhere else, and prove it. Play for the guys and prove it, and be the man. All right, gentlemen, been a pleasure. Thanks everyone for watching, listening, commenting. Hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe to the Locked On Bills channel, and we'll check in later in the week as camp rolls on. This is the Bill Squad Show. Thanks again, and go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.